Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mild Mannered EDC, and today we are going to do a classic mild mannered review of this big old guy. Yep, that is the Bestech Swordfish. Yeah, pretty good looking knife, huh? Actually, this knife was provided for me by the "Hey, go buy it yourself" pass around group. No, seriously, I just bought this knife online. And actually, since we're being honest with each other, and, you know, I feel like I should probably level with you. So I bought this knife, for one reason. And you might have guessed what that is. Yeah, it's black and orange. That's right. Yours truly went online, Googled black and orange knives, found this particular knife, didn't really look that much in it, didn't watch any reviews of it, none of that. Shelled out the $50, spoiler alert, and bought it solely for the purposes that it would match the aesthetics of a YouTube channel that didn't exist at the time. And that, as of now, has 2 videos, this inclusive. So yeah, there you go. Little insights into my personality there. We could analyze that all day probably, but that would be another channel with a bunch of other videos. We are here just today to analyze this guy. So let's get into it. Let's start with the spec check, shall we? I know everybody likes their specs. So the blade on this substantial Bestech is 3.875 inches. It is a spear point blade. It has a blade thickness of 0.12 inches, which, you know, quite frankly, I was a little surprised by. That's actually a very reasonable blade stock. But we'll get into that in a bit. We have a handle that is right on the money, 5 inches. With a thickness of 0.57 inches, so a little bit over a half an inch thick. So that's pretty hefty. We have an overall length, if you're adding all those numbers up, of 8.875 inches. So yeah, not a tiny knife by any stretch of the imagination, but not completely outrageous either. I mean, it's big, but it's not crazy. And then the weight on this knife, also kind of a pleasant surprise, is only 4.87 ounces. Now I say only, that's a heavy knife, but there are heavier knives out there that are smaller than this knife. And this particular knife actually, you know, it's got stainless steel liners, a G10, I mean, big old blade, big old, so, you know, hey, not too bad. So let's do a quick size comparison here, just because we should. There you go. Standard Swiss Army knife, Benchmade bug out, the regular size, not the new mini size, which is also comes in orange, by the way. I should probably make an impulse purchase on that. So there we go. Now, for giggle purposes, the only other Bestech that I own is actually this little fellow here. This is the Bestech Reticulon, and I may do a separate video about that. It's a Elijah Isham design, actually a really cool little knife, but for here, I just thought it would be fun to kind of show the tooth there. I think I may have bookended the product line on folding knives that Bestech has. So there you go. So with that out of the way, specs out of the way, let's get into this actual knife. So here we are with a, you know, pretty close to 4-inch blade. You know, we talked, it's spear point blade. It is a flat grind. I cannot give you a thickness behind the edge of that particular grind because I couldn't find orange and black calipers on the internet. So you'll have to get that information somewhere else. But yeah, I think it's actually a really attractive blade. I mean, for those of you that have seen a swordfish, you know, we've kind of got an aptly named knife here. It came out of the box razor sharp. I've actually been doing some stuff with it since I got it, and it remains quite sharp. You know, I do what a lot of knife guys do. We open a box, knife guys and gals, we open a box and do a first flip and then maybe shave some hair off our arms, see how sharp it is. You can always spot a knife person because they usually have bald spots on their arms from where they've been testing their knives out. That's a strange thing we do, isn't it? But yeah, so it came really sharp. The other piece I want to mention on this is the choil. Let's see if I can get it in there nice and close. Yeah, the choil, really well done. I mean, this is a really, I'm impressed. Bestech, so, you know, I mean, this is, yeah, they're not messing around with this. There's that D2 marker, in case anybody want to see it. I like the kind of flow-through look of the flipper tab, which is there. It's certainly a pretty good size flipper tab, but it's not completely out of line. We'll talk about that a little later. Yeah, so there you go. Let's just talk about that now. Let's talk about action. So this knife actually has a good action. It has a good action, right? Look at that. Okay. Falls shut. I have never misflipped this knife. In fact, my daughter, who really likes to see the flipping action on knives, though she gets a little hesitant, and I always make sure I'm there to do it with her. So I held the knife and I let her flick it, and with her little fingers, she still managed to get it open. So, it works really well. Now, here's what I want to say about the action. And maybe maybe you'll disagree. So please let me know in the comments. But so this is a big old piece of D2 steel, right? On a knife running on ball bearings, right? And made by a company that knows how to make knives, right? So the tolerances here are not bad. They are perfectly good tolerances. So you have an action that I think is fine. Is it stellar? Well, I don't know, because on some level, you take a big old piece of metal, put it against ball bearings, and have it put together by a competent knife company, you're going to get a fine action. It's a good action. The detent is, see if I can do this on camera without knocking everything off. No, I can't. Oh, there we go. And I hit the table. That's all right. You can shake it open. That was my poor display of being able to shake it open. All that to say, which I could have said without putting myself in danger, is the detent's a little tiny bit soft only for that. But again, big blade, running on ball bearings, I can't really. And it's definitely not coming open in your pocket or anything like that. You saw what I had to do to kind of get it open. So yeah, it's got a good flipper action. Good. I wouldn't say it's amazing. I think you can feel the blade running on the ball bearings. There's that sensation you can kind of get. So it's not like it's hyper smooth or anything, but it definitely has an action that, for the price, perfectly adequate. Perfectly adequate. And in fact, maybe better than that. I might be belaboring that, being a little too hard on it, but it's just kind of how I feel with knives that big, and the way we make and the way knives are sort of made these days. I make a knife, but no. So it's just, yeah. Okay. So handle. So this was the part of the knife that, really actually caught me off guard. So I told you I sort of bought this on a lark, and did that for purposes that can be analyzed on their own, but this handle really caught me off guard. This is really, really well done. I actually thought when I initially picked this thing up, and I hadn't seen one before, I was like, wow, is this one piece of G10? I saw the two screws, but I was just like, there is no transition whatsoever. There is no gaps in that. It's just done really, really well. So kudos to Bestech on that one. Nice work. Whoever's doing that, they clearly gave a damn, and it shows, and that's appreciated. On a knife that doesn't cost, an exorbitant amount, it's $50. That's, not insignificant, but you're getting a lot of knife, and to have them actually show that they care and put some details on it, yeah, that's really great. So the other piece that I think is worth noting as it relates to the scales, the texture of the G10 is really nice. Not only is it, it's smooth, but it's got grippiness to it, right? And for a big knife like this, you could be doing a lot of things, but for a knife like this, I think you want, this is a good mix for me anyways, of sort of, it's got some grippiness, but it's also smooth and comfortable on your hands, doesn't hurt your hands. So I think that's pretty great. The other piece I want to note about all this and compliment them again. Oop, there you can. That's perfect. You can see that. You see that chamfer running along the inside. Oop, my finger. There you go. The inside. You can see where they just broke the edge, and they did that on both sides. They actually do that inside as well. Nicely chamfered lock bar. Lockup, by the way. Yeah, about 40%. No issues there. That's really pretty cool. Somebody went around. The jimping, you can see some chamfering up there. This jimping is not aggressive by any means, but it certainly provides a great sort of spot for your thumb to do this. By the way, that's another part of the blade that I think is actually really attractive, both this swedge and this really well done thumb ramp. And I'm not a huge guy for jimping. I don't, heavy uses, but they did this jimping really, really well, especially for a knife that you may be wanting to, do some of that action with. So I think they really went above and beyond on making sure that this was a comfortable knife to hold. The only, and actually you can see here the back spacer, I mean, yeah, perfectly flush, just really right here, no sharp corners, can't touch the blade. Blade is not, it's perfectly, just well done, well thought out, well done. I'm impressed, really impressed, Bestech. And I don't know why I should be. I mean, this little guy that I talked about, it's done equally well for a knife that's, tiny. So they're clearly putting attention to detail here, and I like that. The only thing I might note, and I feel like, if I'm going to do reviews, they need to be honest, and I need to be able to tell you the things that I've noticed. I actually like the B in the pivot, by the way, but I did notice the top of the screws, I wish they maybe were a tad more inset or maybe flush, there's a little catch there on the top of the screws, particularly this one. I mean, maybe I just need to tighten that up. You might be able to see how it kind of sticks out above a little bit there. So that's just something I noticed. It doesn't really, it's not like it causes, and we'll talk about ergonomics, any hot spots or anything, but it's a little snag. And so I did notice it, so I wanted to tell you about it. The other thing is this clip. So the clip, it's all right. I'm not huge on clips that just kind of go woo, straight up. Nice sound effect, right? Right up into the air. It's not the deepest carry clip, and it is definitely not left side compatible. So for lefties, yeah, Swordfish isn't going to be your knife. And they also, they only did a cutout here on this one side. So for lock bar access. So yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, the clip, okay, so the clip, yeah, I mean, it's all right, it's decent. Although I will say, I have doing a little research after I got the knife, there is a newer version of this that I think has a better, more sculpted kind of traditional spoon clip that I think is actually deep carry. This knife's been around for a few years. And so actually that's another area I want to kind of give Bestech a little bit of props for taking the time to actually do a little, quality improvement there. I mean, Spyderco does that a lot and probably doesn't get as much credit as they deserve. But here we got a little BQI, right? A little Bestech quality improvement. So, even if it's a small tweak, they've clearly heard some people and made some changes. Now, ergonomics, I feel this just a tad, but the ergonomics on this knife are really quite good. I mean, it's a broom handle, right? But it's not a boring broom handle. It's got some nice, curves there that fit my hand, really well. Like I said, my hand just falls into this knife, which is really cool. It has a little bit of this downward, I'm sure there's a technical term for that, sort of swoop down here, which on a smaller handle, that can be problematic, right? But you can see, I mean, I've got a small hand. If you've got bigger hands, you've got a whole nother finger you can get in there. So if you have other fingers. So yeah, I mean, ergonomically, good. When I was, I chopped up a bunch of cardboard with this and some other things, worked like a champ. I mean, there was no blade rock, no blade play. Just built like a tank, comfy. I think the way that they've added this flipper tab, and this little bit of a thumb ramp here, so you're not going anywhere. So yeah, I mean, so what's the bottom line on this knife, right? I mean, for me, the bottom line on this knife is I bought it sort of sight unseen, not really knowing what I was going to get. I mean, I had a Bestech that I knew what it was, I knew it's sort of what they were capable of, but had zero expectations. And I got to tell you, for $50, this is a good knife. This is a knife that if you like the look of it, if you like a bigger knife, you're getting a solid steel. I'm not an anti-D2 guy. I know some people are. I mean, I live in the Northwest. It rains. It's wet. I've never had a D2 steel blade rust. Well, that's not true. I had one rust, but I left it in the yard for a week, so I can't really blame that on the knife. So, you hit this with a little, EDCI and you're good to go. But yeah, I mean, for the price, you are getting a knife that not only has a really good blade that carries pretty well. I mean, it's a little bit like having a billy club in your pocket, but it carries well. It's got a very reasonable blade thickness. It slices like nobody's business. And gosh, it still is sharp. They clearly went the extra mile to make sure they did the choil right, the chamfering, the G10 fitment. It's hard for me to find a lot of problems with this knife, other than it's just kind of big, and that's not a problem for everybody. And so I really think this Bestech, if it's something you're interested in, if this kind of look, and they have some other colors, there's a blue, there's a black and blue, there's a black and green, I think there might be a black and gray. I'm not 100% sure, but you know, if you're looking for a knife this size, you want this kind of action, you want a knife that can look good, but is made, I think its fit and finish is hitting a bit above its weight, and it doesn't have an insubstantial weight. So, so insubstantial. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a knife. I mean, they have minimal markings. I mean, for a big old blade like that, just great. This is really a cool knife, and I'm glad that it ended up being that way. I feel a little more justified in the purchase that I made, and I'm really happy that this will be a part of the channel going forward as sort of my token big knife. But it's a big knife that actually represents quality and that I would be more than comfortable recommending to people. So there you go. That's my review of the Bestech Swordfish. Good knife. If you like it, give it a whirl. I think it's worth taking a peek at. Thanks along. Let me know. Thanks for coming along. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of the review. If I'm missing things, if you want different information, what you think of this knife in general. If you own a Swordfish, what do you think? Or Bestechs in general. Please share all those things. I really do enjoy reading the comments and look forward to hearing from you all. And most importantly, please stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to one another. And all the best. Bye.